Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm honestly so excited to film today's video because I get to talk about eyeshadow palettes, and I feel like I could have an entire YouTube channel just dedicated to eyeshadow palettes because they are so much fun to talk about. So now that we are about halfway through the year, I thought it would be fun to do like a mid-year update and let you guys know which palettes are the best and the worst, at least out of the ones that I've tried. Now, I did say I was going to purchase one palette per month this year, and I have done that, but I actually have 12 palettes to share with you in today's video, which again might sound a little bit weird. I purchased 6. I got 3 in the mail as PR that I decided I wanted to test out, and then 3 of the palettes are things that I purchased at the end of 2018, but I didn't try until 2019. I thought I would actually rank them. I've been watching so many fun ranking videos on YouTube, and I wanted to film my own, and I thought this would be the perfect chance. So I'm going to link some of my favorite channels in the description box below who have filmed videos like this. I know Samantha March ranks new eyeshadow palettes, and I love those videos. And then Ashley Clady and Kelly Gooch have been like ranking the different categories in their collection, and I just think they are so much fun to watch. I'm sure there are others that I'm missing, so I'll link some videos below, but today I'm going to rank the eyeshadow palettes from the worst all the way up to the best. Okay, so let me start with the palette at the bottom of the list. This kind of surprised me because I didn't expect to put it at the bottom of the list, and it's not there because the quality is bad. It's there because I never reach for it. This one is the Warrior 2 palette by Juvia's Place. I did purchase a bunch of their palettes on Black Friday last year. They were having a sale and all of the palettes were like 40, maybe even 50% off. I got a bunch of them for like $10 to $12. So I feel like I went a little bit crazy and I just started adding palettes to my cart because I was not thinking through makeup purchases like I have been in 2019. And I think what kind of got me with this palette is that I love the original Warrior palette. That is one of my favorites. It has intensely warm like golds and bronzes, and I really enjoy it. So when I saw Warrior 2, I kind of always knew that I wanted this one, even though I didn't really stop to think if it was full of shades that I would actually wear. Something that I've realized in 2019 is that I love Juvia's Place metallic shadows, but I don't necessarily love the matte shadows as much. I think the matte shadow quality is so good. Like, they are creamy shadows that hold their pigmentation, and they're very intense and vibrant on the eyes. So I love that part, but I do think because they are more of like a creamy texture, they're a little bit more difficult to blend out. So because I literally never use this, I had to put it at the bottom of my list. If you like Juvia's Place matte shadows and you're looking for like a staple neutral palette and you love these colors, I think you'll enjoy the actual quality. It's just that I personally don't use it. Okay, so the palette that takes the number 11 spot is the Urban Decay Naked Reloaded. I talked about this in a disappointing products video. I never filmed like a full review on this palette because I was really late to the game, and it isn't a palette that I was planning on purchasing, but I did get it sent to me in the mail as PR, and a few of you guys were asking my thoughts on it, so I wanted to test it out. Now, I will say that the quality of this palette, in my mind, is not really worth $44. I know a lot of you guys actually love this palette, and a lot of people consider it a staple palette, so it definitely comes down to personal preference. I love like powdery eyeshadows that blend well. Like a powdery matte does not bother me, but the matte shadows in this palette are so powdery. For me personally, there are just so many inconsistent formulas. The shadows are powdery, some of the metallics are just very subtle, even when you build them up over and over. A few of the shadows don't blend that well for me, and they kind of look a little bit muddy on the eyes, and overall, I just was not super impressed by the formula. So for number 10, I have the Urban Decay Game of Thrones palette. This one is a limited edition palette. I believe you can still get it. I actually already decluttered mine, so I no longer have it. I did not purchase that palette. They sent it to me in the mail as PR, and I was planning on reviewing the entire collection, but honestly, by the time I got the chance to test everything out really thoroughly, there were already so many reviews up on YouTube, and not that I can't review a product late, but I just felt like there wasn't really anything that I could add. The palette itself performed well. Now, it was very bulky. The packaging was very extra. If you are a Game of Thrones fan, you might appreciate that, or if you're a collector, you might enjoy it. So it was $65, which is pretty pricey. I think you did get a good amount of shadows. I want to say 20 shadows, which isn't bad. And the shadows themselves performed pretty well. There were maybe 3 or 4 shadows that were a little bit off for me, a little bit underwhelming, but as a whole, I was really impressed by the quality. I think the quality was definitely better than the Urban Decay Naked Reloaded. I just felt like the actual colors in the palette were a little bit underwhelming. I wasn't excited to create like a bunch of looks using it. When I did use it, I got pretty looks, but it just wasn't something that I was ever like so excited to reach for and jump at. So because of that, I did declutter it, and that's why it is number 10 on my list. Okay, so those 3 palettes are actually palettes that will probably end up being decluttered from my collection. The rest of the palettes in the video are palettes that I like enough to keep in my collection. The next 4 in particular are palettes that I do enjoy, I just don't use them as much as I originally thought I would. I like them enough to keep them, and I think the quality is there, but I think that the colors in these 4 palettes in particular aren't as appealing to me as like the colors in my absolute top palettes in this video. So while I like them and I do recommend them, that's why they're a little bit lower in this video. So the first one is the ColourPop Just My Luck palette. I am so disappointed that I don't reach for this as much as I thought I was going to, because I was so excited for this palette. And I will say that as a whole, it performs very well. There are a few shades in here that are slightly more difficult to blend out compared to some of the other ColourPop 9-pan palettes. Like the darker green shades are a little bit more difficult, but I mean, they're not bad. They're workable for sure. For $12, I definitely don't regret this purchase because I think it is fun. And on occasion when I want to add like a pop of green to my look, this is the perfect palette. I think that I typically wear like purple or blue or pink, and I wear green on occasion. But when I do, I think that I have like my favorite green shadows. So even though I do love this palette, I had to rank it a little bit lower because I just don't find myself reaching for it as much as I thought I would. I definitely don't regret it. I wish I used it a little bit more often. Speaking of green eyeshadow, I typically reach for the Tribe palette by Juvia's Place when I do want an interesting greenish blue type of look. But I had to rank this one a little bit lower as well because it's not something that I reach for a whole lot. This is such an interesting, unique color story. I don't have anything like this in my makeup collection. So I do think it's really fun, and I love that there are so many interesting color combinations that you could do, but I personally don't reach for a lot of the shades in this palette. I do use all 3 of the metallics, and then I'll use this deeper green, and then I'll also use this brown on occasion, but you know, it's not necessarily one of my go-to palettes. When I use this palette, I love how my look turns out, and I never regret using it because it's really intense and vibrant, and the metallic shades are duochromes, so I've been really a big fan of duochromes lately because they just transform the eye look. So I love using it when I want a unique eyeshadow look, but you know, I just don't use it as much as I thought I would. Okay, so the next palette is one that I really love. I think that the ColourPop Main Squeeze palette performs so well. And if you love intense, vibrant, warm-toned shadows, I think you'll really enjoy this. The reason that I ranked it at like the number 7 spot is because I just feel like when I use this palette, I get a lot of very similar looks. And there's nothing wrong with that, especially if you have like your go-to look and it's really intense and vibrant. But I don't feel like I can get like a really subtle look out of this palette, or even more of like a medium toned look. In general, it's really intense and vibrant, which is one of the reasons why I love it, because it is like the perfect summertime palette for me. The other thing for me is that some of the shades in here pull a little bit pink, and even though in the pan they look red or they look orangey, once I do my entire eye look, everything is very pink toned, which part of me doesn't mind because I do love a good pink eyeshadow look, but I feel like this palette definitely has a lot of pros, but it also has a few cons. So that's why I kind of ranked it in the middle. I think if you love these shades, the quality is absolutely there. I think it's such a fun option for summertime, but you definitely have to be a fan of like those intense, vibrant, warm shades. The last palette that's kind of like in this middle section is the Anastasia Riviera palette. Now, if you like Anastasia's formula and you are familiar with the formula, then I definitely think that this would be a good addition to your collection. I really like the Anastasia formula. It's been one of my favorites. So I am glad that I finally decided to pick this one up and try it out. I think this is like the perfect balance to the rest of my Anastasia palettes, which are mainly neutral, because there are a lot of fun, colorful shades in here, and I really enjoy using it. The matte shadows are blendable, the metallic shadows are just really smooth and creamy, and I do think it has a nice balance. Even though it is mainly a colorful palette, there are a few neutrals in here, so you can get more of like a natural neutral look. I don't think that I'm great at matching colors that aren't in the same family, like doing a rainbow look, like that's not really my thing. So I think sometimes when I look at this palette and I'm not doing either a neutral look or a pink look, I don't know how to incorporate the other shades. And I don't mind reaching for other palettes in my collection and using them alongside of this one, but I think that's kind of what holds me back from using it more. It's just the fact that when I look at it, sometimes I don't know where to start, but when I do use it, I love it, and I think it performs really well. So it is near the top of my list because I have really been enjoying it, especially for the summer season. Okay, so moving on to the top 5. Number 5 is the Magic Mini Palette by Juvia's Place. I I'm surprised that I love this one so much because when I look at it, again, I feel a little bit overwhelmed like I do with the Riviera palette. Although this one has like a lot more going on. There's so much contrast. Like there are warm shades and cool shades, there are light pastel shades, and then like deep, dark, vampy shades all in one palette. This isn't something that I expected to love as much as I do, but I think that I mainly reach for it as an accent palette. When I do an eyeshadow look and I just feel like it needs a little something extra, but I'm not sure what, this is a palette that I reach for because I'll just take one of the metallic shades, place it all over the lid, and it like amps up my eyeshadow look to the next level. There's just so much going on in this palette that no matter what you're in the mood to do, you can get it with this one. So this is definitely one of my favorite Juvia's Place palettes. If you're looking for something interesting and unique to add to your collection, this is a great option. The formula will not let you down. So I'm kind of surprised that I ranked the Natasha Danone Sunrise palette as high as I did. I kind of expected to rank it a little bit lower because it does have pros, it does have cons, but it is a $65 palette. So for $65, I just expected the shadows to be a little bit more consistent. I did film an entire review on this palette, including swatches, demo, comparison, review. So if you want to check it out, I will link it in the description box below. But I just like using this palette. I think that it's a very well-coordinated palette. So when I want a warm-toned, summery, sunrise type of look, and I reach for this palette, I feel like in the end, I'm always happy with how it looks. There are just a lot of gorgeous shades in here, and I think that it is very well-coordinated. And I think that's sometimes where other palettes fail. This one is just easy. I can grab this palette, and whether I want like an intense vampy look or a little bit more of a natural look, I can get that with this one palette. Now it's not at the top of my list because some of the shadows are a little bit underwhelming. A few of the mattes are slightly more difficult to blend, and some of the duochromes just don't perform as well as I would like them to. And for $65, I feel like that is worth noting. This is a permanent palette, so if you are interested in buying it, it might be worth waiting until like the Sephora VIB sale or a Natasha Danone sale, but I do think it is fun to use, and that's why I have it ranked pretty high on my list. So this is the first palette that I purchased in 2019. I purchased it back in January, and I did not expect to like this as much as I do. I thought that I was going to like it, but because Domini Cosmetics is a little bit of a newer brand, I wasn't really sure what to expect from the formula. This was brand new to me, and these shadows perform so well. The matte shadows are very smooth and silky and blendable, and the metallic shadows are interesting. They're a little bit thicker, but they're not creamy. Like they still feel like powder shadows, so they go on really nicely, and I just enjoy this palette. I think the colors are kind of interesting, and when I first saw it, I felt a little bit overwhelmed like when it was first released, but then I purchased it and I've had so much fun playing with it. I think in general, it's a little bit more of a cooler toned palette, and I just feel like I've been really drawn to cooler tones in 2019. So I can get some nice neutral looks, or I can get a blue look, a purple look, a gold look. There's just a lot that you can do with this one. So I really think that this is a good palette. For $44, I'm so impressed by the quality. Okay, you guys, I don't know if I can choose a favorite between my top two because I love these palettes so much. These are my absolute favorite palettes from 2019, and I have the most fun using them. I think that I'm going to put the one that I'm wearing at number one because I've had it longer and it honestly has kind of like stood the test of time. It is a palette that I love using. So the ColourPop Blue Moon palette is going to come in at number two. I am so glad that I love this palette as much as I do. It is so much fun to use and it just makes me happy, and I love wearing blue eyeshadow so much. I kind of fell in love with blue shadow either last year or the year before, but I didn't have a lot of blue in my collection because brands weren't really doing blues. And then it slowly started becoming a trend, and now it's like a full-on trend, which I think is really fun because blues are so beautiful. There are so many different ways to wear them. And honestly, this is the best blue palette that I've ever tried. Sometimes blue shadows are very patchy, they're uneven. Blue metallics are usually great, but blue matte shadows are a little bit more difficult. And this palette blends like a dream. I think it is their highest quality, like 9-pan palette that I've tried because I just think every shadow in here performs so well. I also think there's enough variation within the 9 shades, so you can create so many looks, whether you want to do something a little bit lighter, a little bit more intense. Like some of the 9-pan palettes there's not a lot of variation within the shade, so you get like one look over and over. With this one, there's so much that you can do, but everything is very blue toned. So I've been having so much fun using it. I only got it in May. So I haven't had it that long. Was it May or June? I feel like it was the very end of May. So it hasn't really been in my collection that long. So we'll see if it stays at the top by the end of the year, but I have a feeling that it will just because it is so much fun to use and I love it. It makes me happy. As much as I love the Blue Moon palette, I think that my #1 spot has to go to the ColourPop It's My Pleasure palette. This was like the first monochromatic type of palette that they did. And I feel like as they go, the palettes get more monochromatic, but this one is more of like a pink and purple palette. And I think that's why I like it so much because pink and purple shadows are my favorite. Either pink and purple or blue. I can't make up my mind. But I think because this has a mix of pink and purple, you can get so many different looks. I'm wearing it today for like an all purple look, but it's really easy to do an all pink look. I just think the shadows in here are so high quality. The metallic shadows are insane. Like this is a $12 palette. It blows my mind because I've tried palettes that are a lot more expensive that do not perform as well as these ColourPop palettes, and I am just impressed by this one. I had to include this at #1. It's high quality, it's affordable, it's fun to use. And if you like pinks and purples, you will really enjoy this one. Okay guys, that is the end of my video. Thank you so much for watching. I had a lot of fun filming this video, even though I feel like it was difficult. It was hard to rank the products because even though I put palettes on like the bottom of my list or like 7 or 8, I feel like they're still good palettes, but there are just other palettes that I had to rank higher. So it was a little bit difficult, but I had a lot of fun. If you enjoyed this video, maybe I can go through and rank some other products in my collection. Let me know if you would like to see that, but I hope you have a wonderful day and I'll see you very soon with a new video. Bye.